We can't deny that Android is the most used platform worldwide. However, there are various reasons that recommend that iOS phones perform better than Android. Apple has shown how software and hardware complement each other with the recent releases of iPhones. That is, iPhone 12, iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro Max, iPhone XR, etc. Apple has also worked seamlessly on other gadgets like Macs, Apple Watch, and Apple TV. It not only provides a device, it provides a closed ecosystem where software and hardware are built to perform at best. In this article, we will discuss the facts to explain why iOS is better than Android. There is a never-ending debate as to whether iPhones are better than Android phones. Better is of course a subjective term. For instance, while iPhones are generally acknowledged to be easier to use, if you're a long-time Android user the first time you look at an iPhone, it certainly won't seem that way. In any case, here follows a list of differentiators, a broken bar if nothing else. These are reasonable arguments as to why you should consider buying an iPhone. Following are the reasons why iOS beats Android. Software and hardware integration. Apple's iOS is a closed ecosystem, which means that Apple manufactures both operating systems and hardware and no other company uses either of them to integrate with their services. It gives Apple an edge over Android to provide a better synchronization between hardware and software. On the other hand, in the case of Android, the hardware is built by the brands like Qualcomm and MediaTek, not Google, and also, the operating system has to be generic for all the devices and brands. Nowadays, brands also make their flavor, which runs on top of Android. Easy to use. It is very easy to use the iPhone since iOS doesn't provide a lot of customization to the user interface, making the new adopters easier to understand. It adds simplicity to the UI, which makes the users habitual of the interface. It doesn't provide multiple options so that the user doesn't get confused while using iPhones. On the other hand, Android provides many options to tweak and change the way the user interface looks. Look into the following image for the iPhone 11 Settings app. Regular updates. Apple is known for its better update timeline since the updates roll in the same date for every device. All the devices get updated on the same date without any discrimination. On the other hand, the Android smartphone makers schedule updates according to their priorities and don't sync with Google. This might be because most of the brand gets their flavors to the current Android version, which are being tweaked for the next update. Lack of choices. There is a lot of confusion when selecting a better phone from a variety of Android smartphones. iPhone doesn't have many varieties like Android, but we can't go wrong while purchasing an iPhone since only 2 to 3 models are launched every year. Also, the fact that iPhones differ only in screen sizes, storage space, and camera modules. On the other hand, many specifications have to look into, which are enough to confuse a buyer. Absence of bloatware. Apple comes with no unnecessary bloatware, which makes it worth its money. It also provides the option to remove certain pre-installed applications. On the other hand, we can remove the bloatware only if we root the device. App Store restrictions. An iOS application has to go through various checks before its release on the App Store. No one can crack paid applications on the App Store. Apple follows very safe and quality policies to review applications that are submitted on App Store Connect. The submitted iOS app has to be responsive and follows the standards of Apple while it appears on the screen so that we can get only quality apps on the iPhone device. Apple has also worked upon the review speed, and any iOS application gets live on the App Store only within a single working day, if not rejected in review. Apple Pay. The Apple Pay feature makes it easier for people to make payments for goods and services with their iPhone in retail stores using an NFC chip built into their iOS devices. Apple Pay also lets users make one-tap purchases within apps that have adopted the Apple Pay API, and it is available on the web on device running iOS 10 or macOS Sierra or newer. Devices capable of using Apple Pay within iOS apps or the web include the iPhone 6 and newer, iPad Air 2 and newer, iPad Mini 3 and newer, iPad Pro models and Macs with Touch ID. Google Pay is not yet available in many countries, so if you are looking for a simple and easy mobile payment method, an iPhone is the ultimate choice. Family sharing. Apple Family Sharing feature is designed to make it easier for a family to share content, purchase and storage across multiple iOS devices and Apple ID account. Up to 6 family members can make, for example, shared music, film or app purchases and share photo albums, calendars and reminders. You'll be happy to know that there is no risk of children downloading inappropriate or paid apps, as family sharing enables parental approval for their children's apps. Resale value. New smartphones are released each and every time and people often upgrade their smartphones regularly. Some opt to sell their phones in exchange of the new ones. No matter how old an iPhone is, it will still get better resale value than Android phone. This is because iPhones are made of premium materials, which goes a long way in helping them maintain their resale value. Apple phones also remain as flagship models and up to date longer, as there is only one manufacturer and new and better phones aren't launched as often as Android phones. iPhones are faster. iOS is more efficient than Android, especially while handling memory. For example, an iPhone 6 which has just 1 GB of RAM can easily outperform an Android phone with 3 GB of RAM because of the fundamental difference between the designs of the two operating systems. On Android devices, a process known as garbage collection is performed. This requires more memory and battery power. This is because Android apps use Java runtime. iOS was designed from the outset to be memory efficient and avoid garbage collection of this sort. Hence, the iPhone can run faster on lesser memory and is able to deliver similar battery life to that of many Android phones boasting vastly larger batteries. Security. Although Android phones are getting better in their security, iPhone still takes the lead. Apple has worked on security for general consumers, most notably with Touch ID and Face ID in the iPhone. The tight oversight that Apple has on apps and the ability to push updates out to more devices more quickly, gives it an edge over Android. Further, Apple encrypts data in iMessage and its other apps. Therefore, you can feel safe knowing your personal data is not stored or read by anyone. Android phones get malware and viruses particularly from app stores. Apple's App Store has fewer apps to offer than the Android phone's App Store, but the number of available apps is not the most important element of app stores. Apple is very careful with selecting which app developer gain access to the so-called Apple ecosystem, a network of devices, apps and developers. Getting apps that contain malware into the App Store is practically impossible. In comparison, Google's App Store, Google Play, is an ad-supported and free environment where anyone can put their apps on display. Android allows the user to install apps from outside the Google Play Store as well, making it impossible to monitor apps possibly containing malware and viruses. In addition to the App Store, unupdated operating systems also cause security threats. Because several phone manufacturers use the operating system provided by Google, not all of them get the updates at the same time and are thus exposed to massive security threats. iOS devices are made only by Apple, so the corresponding problem doesn't exist. The Apple ecosystem is hard to beat. Combined with an iPhone, devices like the Mac, AirPods, iPad, Apple Watch, HomePods, and Apple TV offer some kind of useful integration that makes certain things seamless and easy. So far, no other company or ecosystem has come close to the easy and smooth integration between Apple's home-built devices. What makes Apple ecosystem unique over other companies who make family products is how they work together and the wall they have built up around those family objects. So with their high-technology software that ties them together like AirPlay, AirDrop, Handoff, Continuity and iCloud is what makes Apple products unique. The situation is different for Android phones. Several different manufacturers produce phones and tablets based on the same operating system, so a safe ecosystem and using the devices together seamlessly cannot be guaranteed. Efficient battery use with less heat generation. Big-time fan of iPhone will vouch for the fact that these devices generate less heat even when in use for long hours. The reason behind this is iPhone batteries are known to be far efficient and generate less heat than those that run on other operating system. Apple's iOS operating system is far more RAM efficient than Google's old-fashioned Android operating system, so it needs less RAM, which means that less RAM has to draw power from the battery, which then means that less heat is generated. This means that for the same task, an iPhone processor only runs for a fraction of a second then goes back to sleep, whereas Androids run their processor for a long time and have to us far more RAM, all of which uses a lot more power, 3 to 6 times more power, and generates that much more heat. A lot of users prefer the iOS operating system and its proprietary device only because they can continue to play games uninterrupted for long hours without experiencing overheating issues. Accessibility features. Many users require special accessibility options, which are offered by the iPhone. There are many low vision users, visually impaired, as well as users with less accurate motor function. These people tend to love iPhone's wide variety of accessibility features. There are a number of manufacturers who build Android devices. They do not all have the same accessibility. Google's approach to accessibility is to let each manufacturer come up with their own solution. In a head-to-head comparison, Apple is the accessibility leader. Its built-in accessibility features, the many adaptive and assistive apps available, and ease of use make it the first choice for most people with disabilities. Click the tweet. 10. Gaming powerhouse. With the evolving technology it has placed a handheld gaming device in our smartphone. iOS revolutionized the gaming industry, dethroning PlayStations and 3D. With Apple hardware and software integration, it is possible for Apple Arcade to introduce games with graphics that mimic a PlayStation. Arcade boasts more exclusive titles and a more curated, less bloated library. Apple Arcade has a smaller library of games at 200 plus, but boasts that many of these games are exclusives that you won't be able to find anywhere else, like Fantasian, Crossy Road Castle, What the Golf, and more. Arcade doesn't suffer the filler problem to the extent that Play Pass does, which is a definite point in its favor. Not every game is going to be a groundbreaker, even if it is an exclusive, but in general, the quality of games offered by Arcade is solid. Please note, to play some of the games in iPhone you need to pay for them, but you get the money's worth. In this regard, the vast majority of companies create games and apps for the iPhone faster compared to Android, whose are not charged. Apple CarPlay. When you have an iPhone you can use CarPlay. Compared to Android Auto, CarPlay has neatly arranged icons and you can move them around to prioritize your favorite tape for easy access. Although some things have moved around, it works like iOS on a phone or a tablet and the experience is much more strategic. And with assistance from Siri, Apple CarPlay is better looking, simple to use and more functional. Superior customer support. Apple's retail locations have an open plan design that draws you in as soon as walk by. Although Apple is expensive, it leads the way in customer support. For example, if you walk into an Apple store, you can walk out with a brand new device in less than an hour. Even better, the company has free classes to teach you how to use Apple devices. Let's say something goes horribly wrong with your iPhone, and you need to get it serviced. Or perhaps you want a screen protector installed on it, and you'd rather have it handled by a professional, who will slap that film on with nary a bubble or speck of dust. Whatever your issue is, it's nice to have a place to go, and what better place for iPhone users than the Apple Store. The good news is that you don't need to go through carrier, look for customer service phone numbers, fill out online forms and wait for a long period of time to be attended. Simply visit your nearest Apple Store and enjoy their customer service. Yes, COVID restrictions can make this difficult, but at least you have the option. Owners of Android phones don't necessarily enjoy that luxury. If you need new battery or a screen replacement and you didn't purchase a protection plan from the retailer you bought it from, you'll probably have to ship it back to the manufacturer. That's quite a time-consuming hassle, given how much we all depend on our phones day in and day out. iOS is better at applying updates than an Android. Updating software is one of the things iOS does better than Android. If your iPhone qualifies to get the latest update, it will get it as soon as it's released. Android is an open-source operating system and it's used by many OEMs. If I start naming them, it will be more than 100 of such OEMs. But only a limited number of OEMs carry out regular Android upgrades. Most OEMs don't have a software development team to carry out the delivery of these updates. Additionally, Apple produces less models at a time compared to lead Android brands. I call that model diarrhea. Samsung, Nokia, Motorola, LG, I'm looking at you, which leads them to avoid spreading developers over too many projects. Companies that focus on 1-2 models at a time, like OnePlus, tend to provide updates on a very timely schedule. There's no bloatware, no matter how you purchase your iPhone, where you purchase it from or what iPhone you purchase. You won't find any bloatware pre-installed when you boot it up for the first time. That means it's clean from the very start, without unsolicited power or data siphoning apps sabotaging things behind the scenes. But it has some extra apps such as stocks, etc., but they can easily be uninstalled. Bloatware is a major problem on Android phones because there are a ton of phone makers putting out Android devices. In some cases, you can find yourself with a dozen apps or more that you don't really want or need. The worst part is that most of these bloatware are non-removable. iPhone gets the best apps first. The developers of the best and highest quality apps still favor Apple. Most apps use Apple's App Store as their launch platform and release their apps there much earlier than they do in the Android phone's Google Play Store. This has been the case with some of the most popular apps of recent years, such as Super Mario Run and Snapchat. Some apps may not be released at all for Android phones. It's much harder for app developers to create games and apps for Android phones, as there is a wide range of them and many unique features of the phones should be taken into account in the development. The App Store's revenue model also serves the developers of high-quality apps better, which will guarantee safe and good apps for iPhone users in the future as well. You may even find that apps from established companies, ranging from banks to airlines, are a bit smoother and cleaner on iOS than Android, with better integration with the phone's core services, like Wallet. Google Pay is only now starting to catch on with many airlines, and don't even get me started on how slow and buggy Snapchat is on Android. These are the reasons why iPhones are better than Android phones. Well, for all the above reasons, the winner is iPhone, which will make all of you in the Apple cult lovers feel very proud of yourselves. With a ton of benefits of having an iPhone over Android, it's easy to understand why iPhones are preferred more over Android devices when it comes to recommending someone which phone to buy. iPhone provides superior technical support and it's easy to update the latest iOS than in Android phones. Moreover, iPhones are generally faster compared to Android devices. So if you have a friend or a family member looking to buy a new phone, recommend them to grab an iPhone.